Carl Jung discovered something terrifying about the rarest personality type on Earth. Less than 1% of the population carries this psychological signature. While society sees them as quiet, shy, or harmless, Jung found them to be the most dangerous psychological force in human existence. Not because they are violent, because they see reality with such brutal clarity that it destroys the comfortable illusions everyone else needs to survive. Today, I'm revealing exactly why this type terrifies people, how they can ruin you if provoked, and the specific truth they carry that shatters comfortable lies. Because once you understand what Jung discovered, you'll never look at quiet people the same way again. Jung called them the introverted intuitives. In modern terms, they align with the INFJ type, but Jung's description goes deeper and darker than any personality test can capture. These individuals don't just feel things differently. They collect data on human behavior, like surveillance systems in human form. Their brains process micro-expressions faster than conscious thought itself. They read tone, body language, and emotional undercurrents that others completely miss. Here's what makes this dangerous to them. They cannot turn it off. While you're having a casual conversation, their minds are cataloging every inconsistency between what you say and what your body reveals. They see the lies people tell themselves. They feel the tension everyone agrees to ignore. They perceive the shadow lurking behind every smile. Jung documented this in his clinical practice spanning decades. Patient after patient arrived at his Zurich clinic carrying the same burden. They saw everything and couldn't stop seeing. A mother's fake happiness, a father's hidden rage, a partner's secret contempt. These introverted intuitives absorbed psychological data like sponges absorb water, and it was drowning them. But that's not the terrifying part. The terrifying part is why people hate them for it. Jung discovered something he called shadow projection. When this rare type looks at you, they don't just see your public persona. They see your shadow, the parts you hide from yourself, the selfishness you deny, the cruelty you suppress, the weakness you won't admit. And here's where it gets dangerous. People can feel when they're being seen this clearly. It happens unconsciously. Your body knows when someone perceives your hidden truth, even if no words are spoken. This creates what Jung called the uncanny valley effect in human relationships. Think about it. You meet someone quiet and observant. They barely speak, but something about their presence makes you uncomfortable. They're not threatening you. They're not judging you out loud, but you feel exposed. You feel naked. You feel like they know things about you that you don't know about yourself. So what does the human mind do when confronted with this kind of perception? It attacks the mirror. If you can destroy the person reflecting your shadow, you can maintain your comfortable illusions. This is why introverted intuitives don't just feel misunderstood. They get targeted, bullied, scapegoated, called too sensitive, too negative, too much. Jung documented a specific pattern in his clinical notes. A patient would describe family dynamics with uncomfortable accuracy. The family would unite against the patient, calling them the problem. The patient would question their own sanity, while the family maintained their shared delusion. This wasn't random cruelty. It was psychological self-defense at a collective level. Jung wrote that people will forgive you for many things, but they will never forgive you for seeing them clearly. This rare personality type violates the most sacred rule of social survival. They refuse to pretend they don't see what everyone else is pretending not to see. But the real danger isn't what others do to them. The real danger is what they become when they stop hiding their gift. To survive in a world that punishes clear sight, introverted intuitives learn to wear masks. Jung called this the persona. It's the acceptable face you show the world while your true self watches from behind the curtain. For this rare type, the persona becomes a survival mechanism so sophisticated it rivals professional espionage. They learn to mirror others perfectly, match energy, reflect expectations, blend into any social environment like psychological chameleons. You want someone who listens without judgment? They become that. You want someone who validates your worldview? They become that too. They can fit anywhere because they understand everyone. This makes them extraordinary confidants. People tell them secrets they've never told anyone, pour out confessions they didn't plan to share, feel understood in ways they've never experienced. The introverted intuitive becomes the person everyone trusts with their darkest truths. But here's the danger Jung identified. While they're holding everyone else's psychological content, they're losing themselves. They absorb so much from others that their own identity starts to dissolve. They forget what they actually feel versus what they've absorbed from others. They mistake empathy for identity. They confuse understanding others with understanding themselves. Jung saw this pattern destroy people. They gave and gave and gave until there was nothing left. They held space for everyone's pain until they drowned in it. Empaths aren't broken, they're alchemists in progress. The alchemist's path gives you drills, Jung-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook, in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com. They maintained their persona so perfectly that they forgot who existed beneath the mask. Then something breaks. Jung documented what he called the door slam. It's the moment when this rare personality type reaches their psychological limit. But here's what makes it terrifying. They don't explode like others expect. They don't rage. They don't fight. They don't create drama. They erase you completely, surgically, permanently. One day you matter to them. The next day you're deleted from their reality like you never existed. No explanation, no closure, no second chances. They remove toxic people the way surgeons remove tumors. Clean cuts, no hesitation, no looking back. Jung observed this wasn't impulsive. The introverted intuitive had been collecting data for months or years. They'd noticed every broken promise. They'd catalogued every manipulation. They'd observed patterns, others dismissed as coincidence. When they finally door slam, it's not emotional reaction. It's calculated response based on overwhelming evidence. What makes this so disturbing to others is how it happens without warning. You think everything is fine. They've been patient and understanding for months or years. They've absorbed your bad behavior. They've made excuses for you. They've given you chance after chance. Then suddenly you're gone, blocked everywhere. Conversations ended, relationship terminated. And the most unsettling part? They feel nothing, no guilt, no regret, no second thoughts. The person who cared about you so deeply now experiences complete emotional neutrality when they think about you. Jung realized this wasn't cruelty, it was psychological self-preservation. The introverted intuitive reaches a point where they finally trust their perception completely. They stop questioning whether they're too sensitive. They stop wondering if they're overreacting. They stop giving people the benefit of the doubt. When they door slam you, it means they've seen something in you that cannot be unseen. A pattern, a core characteristic, a fundamental incompatibility with their well-being. And once they see it clearly, they cannot go back to pretending they don't see it. But there's something even more dangerous hidden in this rare personality type. Because they see everyone's weaknesses with such clarity, they possess a terrifying capacity for psychological destruction. They know exactly what to say to break you. They understand your insecurities better than you do. They've mapped your triggers with precision. They could destroy you psychologically if they chose to, through natural perception. Think about it. Someone who reads micro-expressions, who processes tone and body language instantly, who perceives your deepest fears and hidden shame. They know where you're vulnerable. They know what would hurt you most. They know which words would shatter your self-image completely. This is why Jung called them dangerous. Not because they hurt people, because they could if they wanted to. The capacity for psychological warfare exists in them at a level most people cannot comprehend. They carry loaded weapons in the form of insight. Here's what separated Jung's findings from common understanding. He discovered that this rare type usually chooses not to use this power. They possess a strange combination of devastating perception and gentle ethics. They see your weaknesses, but protect them instead of exploiting them. They know how to hurt you, but choose kindness instead, until you push them too far, until you violate their trust one too many times, until you force them to defend themselves. Then their kindness evaporates and their perception becomes a weapon. They will calmly, precisely, and accurately dismantle you with truths you cannot deny. They will hold up a mirror you cannot look away from. They will speak uncomfortable facts that cut through your defenses like they never existed, and you will know in that moment that they've always seen you this clearly. They just chose not to use that knowledge until you left them no choice. Jung documented cases where people's lives fell apart after provoking one of these types to speak their full truth. Marriages ended, careers imploded, friendships shattered, not because the introverted intuitive was cruel or vindictive, because they simply stated observations that destroyed carefully constructed illusions. The question Jung wrestled with was whether this capacity for psychological destruction made them dangerous or made them necessary. Were they a threat to social cohesion, or were they the immune system of humanity, identifying toxic patterns that needed to be exposed? Jung eventually concluded they were both, dangerous and necessary, threatening and essential, destructive and healing. It depended entirely on whether they learned to integrate their gift consciously or whether their gift consumed them. Jung spent decades developing what he called the individuation process. For this rare personality type, individuation meant learning to maintain their identity while perceiving others clearly. It meant distinguishing between what belonged to them and what they absorbed from others. It meant weaponizing their perception in service of truth rather than being victimized by their perception. The first phase Jung taught was conscious discrimination. Learn to recognize when you're absorbing psychological material that isn't yours. Most introverted intuitives walk around carrying everyone else's anxiety, depression, rage, and fear without realizing it. They feel terrible and assume something is wrong with them. Jung taught them to ask a simple question: is this feeling mine, or am I absorbing it from someone else? He instructed his patients to spend time in complete solitude every day, not to escape people, but to let absorbed material settle so they could hear their own authentic voice again. In silence, away from others' energy, they could finally distinguish between their true feelings and emotional debris they'd picked up from their environment. The second phase, Jung called shadow integration. He discovered something crucial about people who see others' shadows clearly. They usually do so because they haven't integrated their own. The more you deny your capacity for selfishness, manipulation, or cruelty, the more disturbed you'll be when you see those qualities in others. Jung taught his introverted, intuitive patients to acknowledge that they contain every human quality they observe in others. You're capable of lying. You're capable of betrayal. You're capable of cruelty. This doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a complete person who can see clearly without judgment. When you accept your own shadow, other people's shadows stop overwhelming you. You can observe someone's selfishness without absorbing it because you've made peace with your own capacity for selfishness. You can perceive someone's manipulation without drowning in it because you've acknowledged your own manipulative tendencies. Shadow integration doesn't make you less perceptive. It makes your perception surgical instead of sponge-like. You see clearly, but you're not crushed by what you see. The third phase Jung called conscious participation. This was about learning to engage with others' psychological content without being overwhelmed or losing your identity. Jung taught his patients to develop what he called psychological containers, the ability to hold someone else's pain temporarily, observe it, understand it, but then let it go instead of carrying it forever. Conscious participation meant choosing when to use your perception and when to rest from it, deciding who deserved access to your gift and who didn't, learning to help others without sacrificing yourself in the process. This phase separated empaths who get destroyed by their gift from empaths who transform their gift into power. Jung documented that patients who completed this individuation process became almost invincible psychologically. They could no longer be manipulated because they saw manipulation forming before it fully manifested. They could no longer be gaslighted because they trusted their perceptions absolutely. They could no longer be drained because they maintained clear boundaries around their energy. But most importantly, they stopped apologizing for what they saw. They stopped questioning whether they were too sensitive. They stopped dimming their perception to make others comfortable. They became what Jung called conscious warriors, people who see everything, integrate everything, and use that vision in service of truth. Jung studied historical figures to understand what separated those who integrated their perception successfully from those who were destroyed by it. He looked at Nietzsche as an example of unintegrated superior perception. Nietzsche saw through social, religious, and philosophical facades with devastating accuracy, but he wielded his insight as a weapon against society instead of integrating it constructively. His isolation and eventual breakdown showed what happens when superior perception remains unintegrated. You become consumed by what you see rather than transformed by it. In contrast, Jung studied Meister Eckhart as an example of successful integration. Eckhart possessed mystical intuition that let him perceive spiritual and psychological realities others couldn't access. But he channeled his insights into compassionate service. He saw clearly, but spoke in ways that invited understanding rather than creating resistance. His success came from what Jung called conscious humility, the recognition that superior perception is a gift to be shared wisely, not a weapon to be wielded carelessly. Most significantly, Jung documented his own struggle with overwhelming perception. From 1913 to 1919, he went through what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, recorded in the Red Book. His superior perception of unconscious contents nearly destroyed him until he learned to integrate these experiences consciously. Jung's breakthrough came when he realized his overwhelming perceptions weren't pathological. They were evolutionary. They represented consciousness attempting to evolve beyond current collective limitations. This realization transformed how he worked with patients who had similar gifts. He taught them they weren't broken. They were ahead of their time. Their perception wasn't a curse. It was an advanced feature of consciousness development. The suffering came not from seeing too much, but from being taught that seeing clearly was wrong. When Jung's patients learned to trust their perception completely, everything changed. They stopped tolerating toxic relationships. They stopped working in environments that drained them. They stopped pretending to be less aware than they were. They became what Jung called culture carriers, people who help consciousness evolve by refusing to participate in collective unconsciousness. But Jung warned about specific pitfalls. The first was what he called inflation. When someone becomes identified with their superior function instead of integrating it, they start believing they're special, chosen, more evolved than others. This inflation cuts them off from genuine human connection and eventually leads to isolation. Jung observed that truly integrated individuals never preach about consciousness. They embody it. They don't lecture others about awareness. They demonstrate it through how they live. The moment you start believing you're the bearer of absolute truth, you've fallen into unconscious possession by the very forces you're trying to understand. The second pitfall was withdrawal justification, using superior perception to justify complete disconnection from society, convincing yourself that others are too unconscious to be worth engaging. Jung recognized this as spiritual superiority masquerading as wisdom. True individuation requires engagement with the unconscious world, not escape from it. The third pitfall was the helper's high, becoming addicted to being needed, defining yourself entirely through your ability to see and help others, while losing contact with your own inner development. When perception becomes identity, the person disappears behind the function. This isn't individuation, it's self-abandonment. Jung emphasized that integration is not a permanent achievement. It's a dynamic process requiring constant conscious attention. Even successfully integrated individuals can regress during stress, trauma, or major life transitions. They stop maintaining psychological boundaries and become flooded with others' unconscious content again. This is why Jung developed ongoing practices, regular solitude for distinguishing your psychological content from absorbed material, conscious choice about when and with whom to engage perceptive abilities, continuous shadow work to prevent projection, connection with others capable of providing reality checking and support, creative expression as an outlet for overwhelming perceptual input. Jung believed integrated individuals serve a crucial evolutionary function. They sense collective problems before they manifest obviously. They feel environmental and social unsustainability early. They perceive spiritual possibilities beyond current frameworks. They understand technological implications others haven't considered. They carry collective shadow contents that need conscious integration. Jung wrote that the sensitive individual feels collective problems first and most intensely. Their personal symptoms often reflect what the entire culture needs to address. This is why their transformation serves evolution, not by martyring themselves to consciousness, but by developing it so completely that it becomes a gift to the whole. At the highest level of development, Jung observed individuals holding their abilities lightly, seeing clearly without attachment to others, accepting what they see, perceiving deeply without compulsion to fix everything they observe. This was what he called the transcendent function, the ability to serve consciousness evolution naturally, without forcing or preaching, simply by embodying more conscious ways of being. Jung left us with a profound insight about this rarest personality type. They're not broken because they see everything others miss. They're psychologically ahead of their time. The question isn't whether they should suppress their perception to fit in with collective unconsciousness. The question is whether they'll develop the individuation skills necessary to integrate their perception consciously. His individuation method offers a path from dangerous isolation to conscious service, from overwhelming perception to integrated wisdom, from psychological curse to evolutionary contribution. This rare type was born to see everything, not to suffer in silence, but to serve consciousness evolution. The world needs their insights delivered with integration, wisdom, and strategic awareness that transform dangerous perception into cultural medicine. Your gift is not your burden. Your unconscious relationship to your gift is your burden. Learn to integrate it consciously, and you become exactly what Jung believed highly perceptive individuals were meant to be. Consciousness pioneers preparing humanity for psychological development that is inevitable but not yet obvious. Jung's most dangerous discovery wasn't that some people see everything. It's that most people who see everything never learn to use what they see wisely. The danger isn't in the perception itself, but in failing to develop conscious relationship with extraordinary abilities. You are not too much for this world. You are exactly what consciousness evolution requires once you learn to wield your perception as consciously as Jung learned to wield his. If you recognize yourself in Jung's description of this rare type, you're part of a psychological category that Jung believed essential for consciousness evolution. Share which type of differentiated perceiver you are. Your individuation journey connects with others walking the same path. Subscribe for more insights into Jung's discoveries about psychological development that transcends collective unconscious limitations. The danger of seeing everything isn't that you see too much. It's that you might never learn to see with the integration and wisdom your gifts demand. In The Alchemist's Path, perception training for empaths, you'll turn overwhelm into wisdom with practical drills, Jung-inspired boundaries, and step-by-step perception training. This guide includes 3 exclusive chapter videos to deepen each lesson. Written by Surreal Mind, 236 pages, beautifully designed 8.5 by 11 downloadable ebook, in stock now. Start your training today. Feel deeply while thinking clearly. Get The Alchemist's Path at thesurrealmind.com. Thanks for watching. See you in the next dimension.